March is here, and so is the madness for Oklahoma State. Could the Cowboys really get into the NCAA Tournament? From the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm Jenni Carlson, and this is the OSU basketball edition of the Bedlam Nation Conversation with Andrea Cohen. Hey, Andrea, last week at this time we were talking about a 3-game winning streak. Now it's 5. How have the Cowboys turned this around?
Kind of a lot of things. It's funny because it really went from one Texas game to the next. You know, they went down to Austin 6 games ago, got killed, and then came back, changed a bunch of stuff, and really since then it have been very good.
Yeah.
Some lineup changes, some kind of little changes. Just kind of a lot of things.
This last week, those 2 wins that they had last week, they shut down 2 of the Big 12's best scorers, most notably Texas sharpshooter Abrams, who was really held in check on Saturday. How have they managed to, especially defensively, to do that?
The perimeter defenders, they have some really good perimeter defenders, and Abrams actually was kind of a split job between Charles Harris and Byron Eaton. They also did a really good with Core Higgins when they were in Colorado. You know, before the game, he's one of those guys where he's really good on a bad team, so everyone's telling you how great he is, and then he scored 3 points in the first half, and it was like, well, Oklahoma State seems to be doing a pretty good job on him. Charles Harris is just a very good perimeter defender. A lot of people struggle kind of with the length of him, but with Abrams, you're chasing him through, 3 and 4 screens on every possession, so that's a big job. So for them to be able to get that done was definitely a huge deal. They're going to need to do the same thing tomorrow against K-State. Clemente, that guy is a huge part of K-State's offense, so for them to do kind of the same thing on him would be really big.
Let's talk a little bit more about that Texas game, because it is such a definitive game potentially for this team for this season. As you mentioned, go to Austin, lose by 20 plus, then this game on Saturday, a big victory. You mentioned some of the changes that Travis Ford has made, but in specific to Texas, did he do some things differently the second time around that he didn't do the first time that maybe changed the outcome of that game?
I mean, really the biggest thing was Marshall Moses showed up. You can do a lot of things. Defensively, I did think they had a much better plan, those kinds of things. But in the first game, those big guys had this unbelievable stat line of 0 points, 1 rebound, and 11 fouls. That was the combination line for OSU's big guys, okay?
Yeah.
So then in this game, Marshall Moses goes out and scores the first 6 points. He's unbelievable in the first half. He still gets into foul trouble, but then he has a huge play at the end of the game, a huge offensive play, and then a big rebound. So when those guys have just their inside game working, it opens things up on the outside, and they didn't even shoot any three. I mean, they only made 3 threes.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you. How is it possible that this Oklahoma State team, long thought to live and die by the threes, they make 3 against Texas and win? How is that possible?
You know, more than anything, that some of these guys are really just not settling for threes anymore, namely James Anderson. I mean, he's really kind of mixing things up and doing more than one thing. He's not just a 3-point shooter. And so, yeah, they only took 12 or something like that. I mean, it was just, they just weren't shooting it as much. It was very funny afterward because someone asked, and Charles Harris says, well, I think that's a good thing. It shows that we can win in more than one way. And then you ask Ford about it, and he says, well, we've done that before. And then everyone's kind of like, well, not that many times, I mean, that was really kind of an impressive thing for them to be able to do without making a bunch of threes.
Now the Cowboys stand 8-6 in the conference, have a very real shot of making the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2005. Right now, where do the Cowboys stand with their NCAA tournament hopes?
Very, very firmly on the bubble. They really need at least one more win in the conference, and then probably a game, maybe 2, depending on seeding, in the tournament. K-State is the game that would be a really bad loss because they can go to OU, and if they have a good showing, it can be just fine. But K-State is a team that they're tied with in the conference, who is also on the bubble. Oklahoma State has the better resume in terms of higher RPI, higher strength of schedule, all those kinds of things. So if they beat K-State, they look like they would be in pretty good shape, which we would have not said 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So yeah, the biggest thing, they got to beat K-State. They got to have a decent showing against OU, win a game in the tournament, and it seems like it could happen for them.
So it's not just as simple as beating K-State in your mind. There still needs to be some other things that need to happen for NCAA tournament bid?
I mean, it could be. Don't get me wrong. They could beat K-State, lose 2, and get in. I mean, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but to feel really secure about it and to feel good about it, I would think that you would want to beat K-State, not get embarrassed at OU, and win a game in the tournament and make it safe for yourself.
All right. Well, Andrea will continue to provide in-depth coverage of the Cowboys. For all the news and analysis, stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.